Audio's on.
Is it on?
All right. Being as it's 7 o'clock, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Let the record show that all members, with the exception of Mr. Cornelius, who is coaching the ball game tonight, are present. This time we'll stand and do the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, everyone's been provided a copy of the minutes. Does anybody have any additions or corrections? If not, we'll let those stand as presented. Mrs. Browning, you have claims.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve claims and payrolls as submitted.
All right, I have a motion to approve the claims and payrolls. Do I have a second for that from Mr. Miller? Anybody have any questions regarding the claims? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. 6-0. We don't have any donations.
Not this month.
Okay, information report.
First, we want to recognize our December staff members of the month. I'd like to thank again Mr. Tim Cochran and the Habib Law Firm Injury for their support for this program. It's given us an opportunity to recognize many of the staff that we have here at Washington Community Schools. So first, we have Hannah Rigg. Hannah was recognized or nominated by Mr. Cherry, the principal at Washington Intermediate. And his nomination says, Hannah is an invaluable asset to the team at Washington Intermediate, and her contributions to the smooth function of Washington Intermediate are immeasurable. Hannah possesses an exceptional ability to handle any situation, no matter how complex or unexpected. Her calm demeanor and problem-solving skills are unparalleled. She consistently goes above and beyond her duties, often taking on additional responsibilities without hesitation. She is a natural leader, but prefers to do so from the shadows. Hannah's organizational skills are second to none, and her knowledge seems to be unending. She keeps everyone in the building, especially me, on track, prioritizes tasks, and ensures the deadlines are met. Her attention to detail is unmatched, and she is always one step ahead. Moreover, Hannah is a team player who is always willing to lend a helping hand. She fosters a positive and supportive work environment, and everyone at Washington Intermediate School rely on her expertise and guidance. I, for one, cannot imagine doing my job without her always having my back. I'm confident that Hannah is deserving of this award. Ms. Rigg's hard work and exceptional skills make her an invaluable member of our team. And I heard today she was somebody in the background helping with the college and career sweatshirt project, and that's always a success. So Hannah, we appreciate everything that you do for us. Hannah Rigg. Next, we have Doug Wadsworth, who's a bus driver, and he's been nominated by our transportation director, Kevin Byer. And Kevin writes, Doug has a passion for kids and wants each student to succeed in any of their goals. Doug is willing to help with transportation and whatever is needed of him. If there was a need for a bus driver for a field trip or sporting event, Doug would drop whatever he was doing to make sure the kids were able to attend. Doug Wadsworth. Next, we have Tasha Rowe, and she is with our food service department, nominated by our food service director, Evan Lips. And Evan writes, Tasha is an invaluable member of our team. In addition to her management tasks, she also fills in for school managers and hourly employees when they have to miss work and assists with caterings on the weekends. Tasha Rowe. Finally, we have Scott Griffith, choir teacher at Washington High School, nominated by Principal Brian Holland. Mr. Holland writes, Mr. Griffith does an incredible job with our choir program. He also teaches an acting class. He handles all of the auditorium activities, including school events and all of the community events. Mr. Griffith is passionate about Washington High School, and it is demonstrated by his commitment to our students and staff. Our students at WHS really look up to Mr. Griffith as a role model and the example he sets for them each day. We are fortunate to have Mr. Griffith. Scott Griffith.
Thank you, guys. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've been promoted.
You're like, you don't have a good side, so it doesn't really matter.
Goes on, all right? Doesn't matter which side.
He knows.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our second item for tonight's information report is Mr. Evan Lips. He has a report for us on food service items.
A couple things I want to cover with you guys tonight. This is the marketing sign for our new elementary platform called Bright Bites. So we're switching from Clubhouse, which we've been doing for about 15 years now. Before I talk too much about it, I have a hype video. I didn't make it, but if you don't mind hitting the play button, we'll watch that real quick.
We all remember the cafeteria from yesterday. Well, say hello to the school meal experience of today. Bright Bites Kitchen. We reimagined meals from top to bottom, with kids coming first every step of the way. Now serving a chef-inspired menu of fresh and flavorful favorites. Whole food that creates wide smiles, because when kids eat fresh, they stay focused, fueled, awesome, bright. Welcome to the kitchen where kids eat fresh to stay bright. And find your seat where taste buds meet best buds. Bright Bites Kitchen.
Okay, thanks. So we already started running this at the beginning of December. The big thing is there's still going to be 4 entrees. The 2 hot, we got the top 25 items that our elementary kids like, and that's the number 1 option. Number 2 is where you're going to see some of the chef-inspired things they talked about. For example, today, and we also give them more choice, we did a popcorn chicken bowl, and the second option was steamed dumplings, kind of like a pot sticker, if you're more familiar with that, which I was like, they're not going to take that. They did. It went really well. But with the popcorn chicken bowl in the past, we would have them have it would just be sweet and sour chicken. But now when they come in, the popcorn chicken is plain, and we'll have 2 or 3 sauces that they can pick which flavor sauce they want, General Tso's, orange, or just have it plain. Or the pot sticker is kind of the new option. What's changed big time with this one is that we make a lot more things from what I call speed scratch. We're not using raw meat still. We are getting fully cooked meat in, but we're actually taking things and making sauces and putting things together in-house. It's got a really big focus on batch cooking. So what I've talked to my managers about since we started this, when I come into your kitchen at 9:30, your warmer should not have food in it. It shouldn't have anything in it until about 10:30, right before the kids come in. And then the cook is cooking constantly the whole time, so they're getting fresh food all throughout lunch. So far, it's been a really positive reaction. Our numbers have gone up a little bit at the elementaries. I'm really excited about it just for the fact that if we have something that the kids aren't taking, we're allowed to change it. And give the kids a voice, and maybe give them 2 or 3 options that we're allowed to put into it and say, okay, you guys aren't taking Swedish meatballs. What do you want us to put in place of that to give them some choice in the matter? So I'm really excited about it. Number 2, you guys all have an invitation for Future Chef. We're trying to get ahead of it this year because I have to help. I have 2 new GMs in my area that I have to help with at other school districts. So we're trying to get ours done earlier this year. Hopefully all you guys can make it and come. Mr. Frank, if you can come this year and help hand out awards, that would be great. And if any of you guys want to be judges, I don't have judges yet, just let me know. Just contact me and let me know, and I'll have you on to be judges. And I didn't write it down for you, but lastly, January 23rd, we are gonna have Dino Nugget Day. I don't know if any of you saw that in Sullivan last year, but I got to go to it and I called one of the Tyson chicken reps and asked them if they would be willing to do that here. And they did, and there was a miscommunication because I was just gonna do it at one elementary school. And when they asked me how many students were in Washington Community Schools, I told them around 2,400, so they got me approved for 2,400. So I'm just gonna do the whole district. And they donate the Dino Nuggets. My kids are a little bit older now, so I didn't know Dino Nuggets was such a big deal, but it is. I talked to most of the principals. We're gonna have people in dinosaur costumes, and they bring little dinosaur plushies to hand out. They do this because the salesperson I'm dealing with is trying to get Tyson to have a K-12 compliant shaped nugget, which you would think is a no-brainer for elementary schools, but they've never had one. So, and by the way, they are compliant. We can do this. It's legal. We just have to give them a large amount of nuggets. If you go to an elementary school, they're going to have a tray with about 8 or 9 giant Dino Nuggets on it, which they won't eat. But again, it's donated. We're not paying for it, so it's fine. So that's all I have. Do you guys have any questions about any of this stuff? No? All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Evan.
Now I'm hungry.
Yeah, any board members want to be a dinosaur?
Scott was wanting to be a
That does sound like me. All right, anything else in information?
That's all, everything for information.
All right, we're now at the point of patron statements on agenda topics. Do we have anybody? None? All right, we can move on. Personnel, retirements.
For retirements, we have one to accept tonight, Nancy Roy, bus driver.
Okay, I have a recommendation to approve the retirement for Nancy Roy. Do I have a motion for that? Mrs. Browning, second from Mr. Hedrick. Any questions? Congratulations to her. All in favor? 6-0. Resignations.
Resignations, Ruth Queen, bus attendant.
Okay, recommendation to approve the resignation. Do I have a motion for that? Mrs. Browning, a second from Mr. Hedrick. Any questions on that? All in favor? 6-0. Leaves.
Mackenzie Dodderwick, leave of absence from February 2nd to April 14th.
Okay, I have a recommendation to approve the leave of absence. Do I have a motion from Mr. Hedrick, second from Mr. Miller. Questions? All in favor? 6-0. Appointments.
I have a few people to hire tonight. First, we have a recommendation for Maylee Graver to be an instructional assistant at Washington Primary. Beverly Harts to serve as a long-term substitute in kindergarten at Beale Elementary. Jeffrey Richardson, long-term substitute for science at Washington Junior High School. And Jessica Warner as a bus attendant.
Okay, I have a motion to approve those 4 appointments. Do I have a motion for that? Mr. Miller, second for Mr. Omer. Anybody have any questions or any need to do them separately? If not, all in favor? 6-0. ECA appointments.
For ECA appointments tonight, I am recommending the hire of Emily Johnson for junior high head girls track coach, Casey Himsell for assistant boys track, Alexis Freeman for assistant junior high boys track, and Brett Madison for head volleyball coach.
Okay, I have a recommendation to approve those ECA appointments. I have a motion for that. Mr. Omer, second for Mr. Hedrick. Any questions? Any need to do them separate? If not, all in favor? 6-0. Anything else?
No other,
No old business?
no old business.
All right, so we'll move to new business, and at this time, we will pause our regular board meeting and move into our second preliminary determination hearing. So I have to read a script. All right, the next item on the agenda is for the board to hold a project hearing and a second preliminary determination hearing on the proposed construction projects. If you are interested in speaking at the hearing, please make sure you have either signed up or raise your hand if you aren't signed up. And you need to give us your name and your address. After a presentation by the administration and its advisors, there will be an opportunity for the public to make comments about the projects. At the hearing, we will ask that each person limit their comments to 3 minutes and that the topic be limited to the proposed projects under consideration. The notice of this preliminary determination hearing was previously published as legally required. The first preliminary determination hearing for these projects was held by the board on November 21st. This time, I will ask that Eric Long from Ice Miller explain the purpose of this hearing. Eric?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board administration. Pleasure to be here before you again this evening to conduct our second preliminary determination hearing. A couple of statutory boxes that we're checking. First, under Title 20 of the Indiana Code, which is specific to school corporations. Before a school corporation may finance more than $1 million to build, repair, alter any school facilities, we need to have a hearing at which explanations of the potential value of that type of improvement project is discussed, as well as the expected value of the projects to satisfy the needs that are presented. Similarly, pursuant to Title 6 of the Indiana Code, which is applicable to all political subdivisions for Indiana, school corporation must hold 2 public hearings and consider a resolution to preliminarily determine to issue bonds or enter into a lease for a project which has a total cost in excess of certain thresholds. Again, this is the second hearing that satisfies that statutory need. The first one, as President Arthur mentioned, was last November.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we will now hear from Mr. Kevin Frank about the process of determining and communicating the projects to the community and the need for the projects.
Gonna work off the ViewSonic board tonight. So how did we get here? This process of how we got here to tonight with some recommendations really started about 12 months ago. We put together what we call a community facility study committee that's had meetings last January, February, into early March. That was a cross section of community stakeholders, parents, community leaders, teachers, support staff, administrators, business owners, farmers, and other stakeholders. And we engaged them in 6 meetings spread out over those 3 months. And, really the purpose of that was to get everybody in all 6 of the buildings, just to tour the buildings, see what kind of conditions they're in, to learn about the type of curriculum programming that we do in each of those buildings. In some cases, to talk about what it is that we're doing well. And we also use that time to talk about, the what ifs. What if we had a better space to serve our special education population or to serve our English learner population? What is it that we need to expand on our college and career pathways and STEM and those sorts of things? We also looked at our school finances. We had Baker Tilly here. We looked at our capacity and kind of the outlay for the future. We had a demographer take a look at our school enrollment and population, and the comeback from that is that our enrollment should stay pretty steady over the next 10 years. We might have a little bit of a drop and fall, but really from where they did that study from early 2024 to 2034, we're basically going to be at the same point. We had a facility assessment done by expert partner in performance services. And then, through that work, we had some ideas presented to us that we took into the summer, and we transitioned into some work sessions. We had performance services, basically providing some just examples of possible projects, some estimates on cost, just to give us an idea and to help give us just some visual, just thinking of what might be. So the areas that we really focused in on are classroom space, just the need for additional classroom space, where I think in all the buildings, in one way or the other, we feel a pinch, where we're maximizing all the spaces that we have. We're limited in what we can do in terms of programming or serving certain populations of the student demographics. We talked about school safety and specifically about improving and modernizing our entrance ways into the buildings in a similar way to what we've already done with Washington Intermediate. Then we've talked about grade configuration. The school district made a decision to go to grade level center models. We're into the third year with that model, and I think there's a lot of positives that have come out of that. But I also think there's some things that we can continue to look at with our model to improve and, really driving what we do with our facilities in terms of, how many grades spans do we want for our kids to go in each building. So the proposed project that we're looking at for these bonds would be an addition renovation of Washington Primary Building, where we would look to add 10 additional classrooms. This would allow us to expand the space and grow the preschool program. We would look to improve the front entrance, the office suite, to modernize and secure it. We would look at ways that we can expand and modernize the spaces that are serving the special education, the English learners, or Title I spaces for that building. And then the renovation would allow us just to modernize that building to improve the efficiencies of all the mechanical systems and the overall cost to operate the building, where we anticipate we can neutralize with improved efficiencies. If the budget permits some side projects that could occur, we would like to look at being able to improve the front entrance at Washington Upper Elementary. Also taking a look at the entrance ways for Washington Junior High and High School. I think what we've talked about with that, though, is there's a second part, and the work sessions in that will need to continue on what the next part of our facility planning and strategies are. And that would impact on what we would do with that piece. And then also, I think we would all be in agreement. We need to look at Washington Junior High School gym. It's approaching 100 years old, being 100 years old here in 2025. And it's got some things that we need to look at and invest in to keep it functioning well for us and just simply to modernize it. Budget summary estimates. Again, these are based on working with Performance Services and their expertise and what they see in terms of the construction market these days. But our estimate on the primary addition renovations, $22,500,000. The other projects, we would have a budget of about $767,850. And that completes the presentation on our need, the proposed project, and the estimated cost. Now we're going to transition. I'll let Scott introduce the next part.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. We will now hear from Brock Bowser with Baker and Tilly about how the proposed projects will be financed, as well as information about the effect on the typical property tax home.
Good evening, Mr. President, Mr. Frank, members of the board. Always a pleasure to be back here in Washington, and I'm really excited to use this touchscreen. This is pretty impressive. So, four main things we'll talk about this evening. We'll look at outstanding debt as of today for Washington Community Schools. We'll look at the max parameters for these projects for the financing and resolution. And I want to emphasize these are maximum parameters. Doesn't mean this is what the financials are going to look like, but we're establishing conservative maximum parameters. So as we go into the market to sell bonds, at that point, we will not exceed what you're establishing as the maximum amounts this evening. Third thing is we'll look at outstanding debt with how this proposed financing will look altogether. As you heard Mr. Frank talk about, looking at it from a holistic standpoint, making certain that we don't overextend to taxpayers the planned tax rate. That ultimately we'll look at what the implication is from a tax rate standpoint of the debt service to taxpayers. So thank you. So outstanding debt as of this evening, this is the same presentation that you all saw back in November. What I will add is the only thing that we've done since that November meeting is is sold and closed on the GO bonds, which we'll look at in a couple of slides. But I think from this standpoint is the board has very pragmatically managed its debt to be able to position yourselves to consider this project going into this evening. So there were 4 securities outstanding, all debt matured at the end of 2030. So rating agencies would look at this as what they would describe as an accelerated payment. So very favorably from a rating standpoint, since you have so much debt maturing in the next handful of years. So from a maximum project standpoint, we're establishing the proposed max borrowing amount at $26,430,000. The estimated repayment term is 19 years and 8 months. So we're assuming we get through the process and issue these bonds this spring. In the state of Indiana, you cannot repay bonds more than a 20-year term. So that's why we're establishing that term at 19 years and 8 months. We are setting aside dollars, and you'll see this in the next slide in a little more detail, but in order to mitigate any impact on the tax rates, taxpayers, we're estimating we'll have to set aside dollars to pay from the bonds to bondholders so we don't increase the debt service tax rate, but we'll look at that in a little more detail in the next slide. Then the estimated proceeds available for projects, you heard Mr. Frank target that $23.2 million project budget and hitting that with these estimates. The estimated interest expense, we're estimating right now about $18 million. That is with a 5% coupon. So the market's a little bit better than the 5% at this point. So hopefully we'll be able to beat that when the spring comes. The FOMC just did decrease rates you saw yesterday. The prevailing thought is no more decreases in interest rates, at least at this point into 2025. The maximum lease rental is $2,657,000. That's not what we're increasing payments. That's just as debt matures, what that maximum payment is attributable to this project. Again, we'll look at that in a little more detail next slide. This bolded row, can't say this enough, the estimated debt service rate impact is 0. So estimated we will not increase the debt service tax rate as a result of this project. Then statutorily, there are some ratios that we're required to provide for taxpayers who may want additional information. There are additional details available with Mr. Frank. But going on to the next part, you heard me talk about on slide 2, the gray bars was the 4 bonds that were outstanding as of today in November. The yellow represents the 4-year repayment on the GO bonds that we just sold and closed on. But for tonight's purpose, what the structure would look like for the max parameter for that 19-year and 8-month repayment. The blue bars represents what actually is going to be added to the debt service for Washington Community Schools from a maximum standpoint. The barber shop are the dollars we're pulling out of the project, setting aside to pay bondholders so we don't increase property taxes to fulfill that increase. We will mitigate this and minimize this to the best of our ability because we want to make sure that we have the maximum amount of dollars available for projects, but also trying to avoid any increase to taxpayers. So it's a tool used by many Indiana school corporations throughout the state of Indiana to avoid any increase to the debt service tax rate. So all in all, with this black line, estimated conservatively with no increase in net assessed value, that we'll be able to issue the $26.43 million in bonds in 2025, begin repaying in 2026, because that's in the state of Indiana how debt is structured, where it's similar to your own home mortgage, but you have to start repaying the next year after you issue bonds so they can be added to the property tax bills the next year. So assuming we issue in spring of 2025, begin repaying in 2026 over that 19-year planned time period. For those who prefer numbers versus a visual, same information on this graph with what the debt would look like if all of these assumptions and variables held true, keeping the total payment, annual payment and debt service right around that $2.6 million range. But again, these are not final numbers. These are max impact and max parameters for this project. With that, I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Ross. Okay, we will now open the public input part of the hearing. Remember, if you'd like to speak, do we have anybody signed up? Okay, so we don't have anybody signed up. If somebody wants to, raise your hand. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll ask you to state your name, address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Anybody interested in speaking? Don't open up at once. All right. If not, what's the next step? I got more down here to read, don't I? Okay. All right. So thank you to all who participated in the hearing. We appreciate your time and interest in the projects and the future of our community. Please note that this is just the first step in the legal process. The board will continue to work with the administration and its professionals to look for efficiencies to conserve tax dollars while meeting our educational needs.
Jump back in.
Okay. Yeah, so at this time, we'll close the hearing out and resume our regular board meeting. And at this time, Mr. Frank, you have some resolutions.
So the first one, I'm recommending the adoption of the project resolution. Project resolution is required when the school is planning to finance more than $1 million on a given facility or type of work. Contains the estimated hard and soft construction cost and the cost of issuance, and establishes the total cost of the projects. It also contains the estimated tax impact. The board members have received the actual resolution with that information. We do have paper copies there on the side table for any of our guests. If they would want to see that, it's Exhibit A.
All right, so now I need a motion. Okay. All right, I have a recommendation to approve the project resolution. Do I have a motion for that? Mr. Miller, second from Mr. Hedrick. Anybody have any questions, comments on the resolution? If not, all in favor of approval, raise your right hand. 6-0. Right. The preliminary determination resolution.
Yeah, so the next item, I'm recommending the adoption of the preliminary determination resolution. The preliminary determination resolution is required when a school is planning to finance more than a certain amount of school construction and improvements. It contains the total cost of the projects, maximum annual payment and lease term, and other financial terms such as the estimated principal amount and tax impact. Again, the board members have received the copy of what that is. There are paper copies on the side table for anybody else to review.
Okay, I have a recommendation to approve the preliminary determination resolution. I have a motion for that from Mr. Omer, second from Mrs. Brown. Any questions on that? If not, all in favor of approval, 6-0. Okay, and now the
Reimbursement resolution, I'm recommending the adoption of the reimbursement resolution. This is the next resolution is a reimbursement resolution relating to the financing of the construction projects and the reservation of rights for federal tax purposes. This resolution permits the school corporation to reimburse itself from bond proceeds for any expenditures for the projects prior to the closing on the bonds. It is required by federal tax law in order to preserve the school corporation's ability to reimburse itself. And again, the board members have received that resolution, and there is a paper copy of that one on the side table.
Okay, I have a recommendation to approve the reimbursement resolution. Do I have a motion for that? Mr. Hedrick, second from Mr. Miller. Questions on the reimbursement resolution? All in favor of approval? 6-0. Thank you all. I think I want to just comment right here. I think this is an exciting time for our district, and we've spent a lot of time to get to this point and look forward to moving forward from here. Okay, moving on, we have policy updates.
I have the second reading of a series of policy updates. We did the first reading in October, and I just missed adding these onto the November board meeting agenda. So these are a series of updates provided to us by Neola. Part of them have to do with what's called EDGAR, EDGAR. Those are regulations related to the use of federal grant funds. And then the other half are just a series of policies on board meetings and a variety of things really on just really minor updates to phrasing that keeps us compliant.
Okay, so this, do we have to approve them since it's a second reading?
Yes.
Okay. So at this point, I have a recommendation to approve the policy updates. So a motion for that, Mrs. Brown, a second from Mr. Miller. Anybody want to go through those? I think there's plenty of them. All right, so if not, all in favor of approval? 6-0. The 26-27 calendar.
So in an effort to try to keep our school calendars about 2 years out in advance, I am presenting the 26-27 school calendar. I want to thank Quentin Myers and his input, working with me on putting this together. I think generally it follows the same flow of school calendars that WCS has had here recently, this year's calendar and next year's calendar.
Okay, I have a recommendation to approve the 26-27 school year calendar. Do I have a motion for that? Mr. Miller, a second from Mr. Hedrick. Do I have any questions on the calendar? All in favor? 6-0. Tag funds.
I'd like to recommend the approval of tag funds for the other teachers, counselors, and administrators that do not fall under the umbrella of the Indiana Department of Ed's Teacher Appreciation Grant. Historically, Washington Community Schools has provided the exact same amount stipend to the other identified certified staff. They've been provided to the board members.
Okay, I have a recommendation to approve these tag funds. And I have a motion for that. Mr. Miller, second from Mr. Edrick. Anybody have any questions on these? Did we approve the other part already?
So we've approved, every year we're required to approve our tag policy.
Right.
We did that,
We
we did that earlier this fall.
Okay, so this covers everybody. So all in favor of approval? 6-0. The bid for the chiller at the high school.
So we've, as part of our projects related to our GEO bond that we just passed here, we have completed some bid processes for 2 projects. The first one, I would like to recommend that we accept the bid from HFI for the chiller purchase for Washington High School and Washington Junior High School.
Okay, I have a recommendation to approve the bid from HFI for the chiller. Do I have a motion for that? From Mr. Miller, second from Mr. Elmer. Anyone have any questions on the chiller bid? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. 6-0. Okay, the Buchanan bid.
And so the second project that we're looking to get on, and both of these, we're looking at summer of 2025 projects that we would hope could be completed by the start of the 25-26 school year. So the second one, I'm recommending the acceptance of the bid from Buchanan's for installing air conditioning in the upper elementary gym.
Okay, I have a recommendation to approve the bid for the upper elementary gym. Do I have a motion for that? Mrs. Browning, second from Mr. Elmer. Any questions on that one?
I do have one if Graham's here.
Yeah.
Is Graham here?
Yeah.
Hey, on the non-fusible disconnect switch, should we not use a fused disconnect? Just kind of wondering why they went that way on that particular.
On the chiller?
Yeah. Well, for the one from Buchanan, yeah.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Something to look into, maybe just
Maybe because there's not one there existing and it's just a cheaper route.
Easy.
But we maybe add that in as an addendum.
okay. Something to look into. Yep.
All right. All in favor of approval of that bid, raise your right hand. 6-0. I'm gonna make another comment that we're moving quickly with the funds from that bond and getting some things done. I like it. It's very good. Any other?
No other.
All right, so we're at our non-agenda topics, patron statements, portion of the meeting. We have any of those? All right. Information items, Mr. Frank.
Reorganization meeting will be January 6th at 6 o'clock. And also to make note, we've caught this date, January regular board meeting will be January 16th at 6 o'clock. So that we can transition over to the varsity girls basketball game.
Anybody got an update on how we're doing tonight?
And then the third item, would like to take a moment to make a special presentation to Randy. It's an honor for me to recognize Randy. Randy was on the interview team when I came here in 2015. He served the district for 20 years. He's been a champion for our schools, our staff, but most importantly for the students. I really believe that he's been someone that's been guided by the principle of doing what's best for kids. He's been a voice of reason and a source of wisdom for myself and the other board members. With the experience he's gained from probably seeing and experiencing everything you can see as a board member. On behalf of the entire school district, our students, and our community, thank you, Randy, for your exceptional service and leadership to Washington Community Schools. I'd like to present you with this plaque.
Well, hang
Nope.
Come on, Sarah.
In Sarah's head.
Okay. Is the chair blocking it?
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right.
Okay, well, I personally want to thank you, Randy. You were part of the board that brought me onto the board.
At a very,
But at a
trying
tough
time.
time.
Yeah.
Very tough time
Yeah.
for you personally, I know. And I appreciate everything you've done, not only, since I've been on the board, but all the years that you've put in this and shown us the way to do it. I don't know how to say it any better than that, but we're losing a very valuable board member after this meeting tonight. Looking forward to the next guy, but you'll definitely be missed.
Yeah, everybody seems to think, you can't be replaced and that maybe the board will fold when I leave, but it won't. And it's gone through many board members and superintendents over the years. And I think Kevin's my fourth superintendent, and probably 6 or 7 principals at the high school, and probably 7 or 8 assistant superintendents along the way, everywhere from Tony Nante to Becky Dayton, on. So Paul Goss and all that crew. But it's been my honor and privilege to do it. I know we had a challenge a couple years ago from the COVID, and me and Dr. Roach would sit in here and we'd be the only 2 in here, and everybody else is on a laptop, and we're having a virtual meeting. So those, glad to see that's gone, and hopefully that doesn't come back. But it has been 20 years, over 24. And my wife is really glad I'm getting out, I think. But the thing that I'm most proud of is that anybody that has ever called me has gotten a call back. Anybody that wanted to know something or missed me on my answering machine, I would call them back. They didn't always want to hear the answer, and that's just part of being on the board. You got to do what's right for the students, the faculty, the staff, and the community. So proud of that fact. We've had a lot of good things happen over the years, from our Project Lead the Way to our career pathways to our Kids at Hope initiative. Been a lot of changes in the high school renovation from 2008 and the junior high edition, Hatchet Hollow. Proud of those things that we've been able to accomplish over the years, but it's been a good. And made a lot of friends over the time and probably a few enemies, but more friends than enemies. So thank you all very much.
Yep, thank you, Randy. And I would call it a bit of an end of an era. You're the last remaining board member that was on when I got on this board back in 2020. So
Times change.
we've seen a lot of change.
Mhm.
So appreciate everything you've done. All right. Does anybody have anything else to bring before the board tonight? Anybody else want to say anything? If not, Mr. Bushy, in honor of your final meeting, I would love to entertain a motion to adjourn from you.
So moved.
All right, got a second from Mr. Hedrick. All in favor? 6-0, meeting adjourned. Thank you all. Randy, we would like a picture of you.
Okay, that's fine.
Steve, you get a picture of all of us with.
We're up there back to this.
No, okay.
I was.